Hi guys, and welcome to Mimi's Lounge. I'm glad that you're all here. If you're new, welcome to the family. On this platform, we talk about mental illness, emotional illness, and everyday life situations. And we also talk for solutions, to find solutions to these problems. Okay. In this video, we're going to talk about ADHD, how it affects in children and adults. Okay, so I'm going to give you a rundown. If I happen to look down or to the side, that's because I'm looking at my notes. I don't want to give you the wrong information, so I have to look at my notes. Okay, now with ADHD, it stands for attention deficient hyperactivity disorder. Okay, chronic condition including attention difficulty, active, and impulsiveness. Okay, ADHD can often begin in childhood and can persist into adulthood. It can contribute to low self-esteem, troubled relationships, and difficulty at school or work. Okay, there are three main symptoms of ADHD, and that is hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattention. All of these impact behavior, mood, and thinking. This is why ADHD meets the criteria for mental illness. You will rarely hear it described in those terms, which is true. We're going to get into that part in a minute. Okay. A few practitioners use the word mental illness to describe kids with ADHD. They tend to refer it as to a behavioral disorder. Some may even refer it to as a learning difference that can affect all areas of learning. Okay. So what that means is that one, you will not you won't hear ADHD referred to as a mental illness. In fact, you will refer to as either a behavioral problem or a learning disorder. So that's what you're going to be hearing mostly is a behavioral problem and a learning disorder, not a mental illness. Why? I don't know. It fits the criteria of a mental illness because it does deal with the behavior, the mood, and the thinking. And let me just tell you, with a mental disorder, it deals with the brain. When the brain chemicals are unbalanced, you have a mental disorder. Okay. Medication work well for around 80% of the kids who take it if the type and dosage is carefully tailored to them. But medication may not be right for all kids and families. There are two types of medications, non stimulant and stimulant. Okay, so what they mean by the medicine being tailored, that means they have to know the child, they have to know the child's body, the BMI, they got to take all of that into consideration, as well as their environment as well. And the right medication and the right dosage will help. Sometimes they may give you a cocktail drugs to figure out which suits you. Not all medication is for everybody. And that's what they mean by tailored. Okay. Now, I'm going to describe the stimulant. Okay. The stimulant increases the neurotransmitter levels, heart rate, blood pressure, decreased appetite, and sleep. Mm, that's a hard one right there. That's a hard pill to swallow. It really is. Um, Now, there are example of these drugs I wrote down. We all know one of them is Ritalin, but it only lasts 3 to 4 hours. And then you got Dexedrine, which is 4 to 6 hours. So these medications don't even last 24 hours. They only last a certain amount of hours. And that's probably why they do have these kids take it multiple times a day, is because they don't last but for so long. Okay. Now you got the condition, cognition. It's enhancing medication, improves mental functions, lower blood pressure, and may balance mood. Okay. And then they got antihypertensive drug, which is, it helps regulate the blood pressure. Okay. Now for these kids, this is what they have set for the kids. Okay, they got the cognitive behavior therapy that helps kids talk about and manage negative feelings. If I say some of these words wrong, you know what I mean. I can't say all these words right. Some of these words in the medical field are hard to pronounce. Okay. Now, they also make combinations can help kids that ADHD to work their potential in class, and they have behavior therapy and may help kids with ADHD replace negative habits and actions with positive ones. Okay, so the kids may be put on medication. They have therapy, two different types of therapy, one for behavior and one to handle with your feelings. Okay, now I would not recommend, well, I'm gonna leave that at the end. Just hold on. Let me get to the adults now. Let me get to the adults. Okay, for the adults, approximately 4.4% or 10.5 million adults are estimated to have ADHD. That is quite of a bit. That's a lot. Symptoms of intention in adults are, this is intention. The symptoms of intention often often makes careless mistakes and lacks attention to details, often has difficulty paying attention to tasks, often seems to not listen when spoken to directly, often fails to follow through on instructions, chores, or duties in the workplace, often has difficulty organizing tasks and activities, often avoids dislikes or is reluctant to participate in tasks requiring sustained mental efforts like preparing reports, completing forms, or reviewing lengthy papers. Okay, this is for the adults. Okay, now the list goes on with that. I'm not going to drag it out because the list does go a long way when it comes to intention. Okay, now this is the symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity. Often, often fidgets with or taps hands and feet or squirms in seat. Often leaves seat when remaining seated is expected. Often runs or climbs where it is inappropriate or feels restless, and adults may be limited to feeling restless. Often unable to participate in leisure activities quietly, often acts as if on the go or driven by a motor, often talks excessively, often blurts out an answer before a question has been fully asked, often has difficulty waiting his or her turn, for example, waiting in line, and often interrupts or intrudes on others. Now, ADHD is a lifelong condition, yet symptoms in adults may be less noticeable than those in children ages 6 to 17, though they are just as important to identify. Now, when it comes to the children, me personally, and this is through my experiences, when you have a 6 year old, a 7 year old, a 5 year old, 4 year old, they are full of energy. So naturally, it's going to seem like they have ADHD, but it's because they are full of energy. Now, you get to 10 or 11 and they still acting that same way, very hyper, can't sit still, can't sit down, can't stay focused. Then you go ahead and take that child in to get assessed. That is my suggestion. Because you don't want to put your child on medication before they're 10 and 11 because, like I said in the beginning, they are naturally hyper. So I will wait until about 10 or 11 years old to look at them and get them assessed. Okay, now with adults, it's very, very, very hard to notice the symptoms, but it's not that kind of hard, especially if you pay attention to your own body, you pay attention to everything that you do, you're going to know something is wrong. And even if you don't pay attention to every little detail of your body or yourself and how you act and how you produce in society, you will still get that sense that something may be a little off with you and you're not sure what it is. That's when you go in and you just say, hey, look, I need to be assessed. I think something is wrong. And you tell them your symptoms. Okay, and once you tell them your symptoms, then they'll be able to understand you better. But you got to be open and you got to be honest. That's the only way you're really going to get your help. That's the only way you're going to get your help, is if you're open and you're honest about your situation. I was once misdiagnosed as ADHD. I had some of the symptoms, but I didn't have all of it, and I'm assuming that's why they put ADHD on me. And till this day, I still have some of those symptoms. Like, I'm very hyper. Um, in my first video, I talked about bipolar 1 and 2 and the different levels. Okay, and so I'm bipolar 1 and 2 with psychotic episodes. So therefore, I'm very hypomanic at one moment, and then the next minute I could be depressed, and then next minute I could be happy, and the next minute I could be crying, and so that's why they put 1 and 2 with psychotic episodes. With the psychotic episodes, that leads to like seeing things, hearing things that may not be there, or racing thoughts. They could just come out of nowhere. I'm also diagnosed with PTSD as well. And so lately I've been talking to my doctor about that side of me because I've been having some bad dreams. But um, when I first started out with this thing, I didn't want to accept none of that. I didn't want to accept the ADHD part. I didn't want to accept the schizophrenia part. I didn't want to accept the paranoia part. I didn't want to accept the bipolar part. I did not want to accept the fact that something mentally was wrong with me. And I did do a follow up on my bipolar video. I did a follow up on that, and you'll learn more about me. Um, to learn more about me, watch my interview. Okay, I linked it at one of my videos, and watch my recap of my interview. That will give you a more description of what I've been through and how I became who I am today and how I started this platform. So I'm gonna leave all the information down below that you need to get someone or yourself some help, um, or just to get some therapy going, just to help you. I'll also do a supportive group. I don't know when I'm gonna start that. I would like to get enough of you guys to come on in. Come in. Don't be afraid. Just come on in and we can start the supportive group. Okay. Unfortunately, the phone number I had listed is no longer in use by me. So therefore, I will have to give you guys a new number. Until then, love your children, do the best that you can by them, because we have a responsibility to them, but they don't belong to us. And so, take good care of your children and take good care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your children. And always have this thought in your mind, in the back of your mind, okay, when it comes to ADHD. Okay, your child may be 6 or 7 years old, or 7 to 8 years old, and they're very, 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 very hyper. Do not send them in. This is just my suggestion. Do not send them in. Wait until they're 11 years old. If they're 11 years old and they still showing those symptoms, then you go ahead and call one of these numbers down below in the description box and get them the help that they need. Until next time, guys, I'll see you. Bye.